Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christie, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. It's another day to have a great shot of B12 and some opportunities to learn some new things with our new friend, Brian Irwin. But before we get in deep with Brian, I would love for you to follow this podcast. If you are not already following the podcast, you won't get notifications that say great people like Brian are with us. So please follow, share, get people to get excited about it, because I know that there are going to be nuggets of wisdom that you need, not just out of this episode, but about every episode. So I'm ready to dive in with our new friend, Brian. Brian Irwin is a recovering 80s band hair guitarist, which is just a hair guitar. I said that wrong. Let's try that again. He's a recovering 80s hair band guitarist. Those are two very different things. He's a mountain biker who tries really hard not to see blue under his wheels, because that means he's upside down. He's also an entrepreneur by circumstance. He's an author, not once, but twice. And he is a new resident of the Seattle, Washington area. Brian, welcome to Productive Joy.
Thank you, Dr. McMullen. I am very happy to be here. Thanks for having me on as a guest. I appreciate it sincerely.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun together today. So, Brian, people are funny and they have to have their attention grabbed. Now, if the hairband didn't grab their attention, what would you say in about 30 seconds that would get people to know they want to listen to this episode?
I consider myself a strategic simplifier. So I focus on the reduction of hidden costs in organization. And the hidden costs are through the roof. Hidden costs are things that don't typically hit the bottom line, but they impact it nonetheless. Think about all those times that is spent in meetings that should be better served as an email, all of the processes that people go through and follow that are legacy processes that have been replaced by something, but we still do them because that's the way we've always done it. So those are the things that I focus on. And hopefully today I'll provide some tips and some information on how to reduce some of that waste in organizations and for managers and people in corporate and in companies in general.
Oh, well, I would have a feeling everybody is leaning in just a little bit, because I know we suffer from hidden costs all the time. And I love the phrase, this could have been an email, because we've all also sat in those meetings. And we did add it up one time. And if you take everybody's hourly wage times the hour that the 15 people spent in this meeting, it just becomes astronomical. So you help companies figure out how to avoid that? That's a pretty cool job.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And there's data to back this up. These are not made up numbers. The average hidden cost per person in an organization ranges from 20,000 annually up to and exceeding 90,000 per person annually.
Oh my goodness. Really? Yeah. And if you think about a company of 200 people, that's astronomical. My goodness. So we're just flushing money down the toilet, huh?
Right. It's a lot of it is tangible money, right? I had one organization that, because of the time that was spent on approving a statement of work, that would have cost them $5,000 to do it quicker, they lost a $150,000 contract. So that's tangible money. A lot of this has to do with wasted time. So that number, it equates to about half of an individual's time spent working through or trying to get around organization dysfunction. Right. So waste and those kind of things.
Yeah, spinning our wheels. We spend a lot of time as professionals spinning our wheels, don't we? And I don't think it's intentional. I don't think people wake up in the morning and think, you know what? I have an idea. Let's waste 3/4 of our day. No, that's not it. But I do know people who not only do, but actually perpetuate it with the way they run their meetings or the way that they handle things. And sounds like you are kind of the expert that fixes that. So let's back up a second, because you didn't start here. You started somewhere else and landed here kind of by circumstance, right? So why don't you tell us a little bit about what got you to the point where you realized that you could help people streamline their processes?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career, I came up through the engineering ranks, the technical ranks, project management, and then around 2005 to 6, and really hardcore starting in 2012, I entered the world of agile. And I like to refer to agility, not agile, because, agile is really an adverb. It's not a noun, a thing, right? Like a methodology or a framework like Scrum or Kanban. But I was really working a lot in agile coaching, agile consulting, training, and doing organizational transformation work. And a lot of that is transitioning people, organizations from project to product management. Much of that is reducing waste so that organizations can deliver more quickly and take feedback more readily from customers and the market and incorporate it quickly so that they can make changes and make their products better. Right. I had a mentor of mine tell me one time that the definition of a customer is someone who will tell you exactly what they need after you deliver exactly what they've asked for. So that's why feedback and iteration, incrementalism, I think is really important. In doing that work, I discovered a ton of waste, and a lot of it has to do with the amount of time people spend on processes that are old processes that they are just the way things are done around here, right? They put a new process in place, but they fail to sunset the old process, so they end up doing multiple things. They pull data from many systems and aggregate it into reports, right? And that wastes time. Many times those reports aren't even read by people. And I've tested that theory myself, by the way. Funny story of how that's done, but maybe we could do that in a little bit. But it's a lot. That's really how I found myself here. And then 2019, I was working with an organization, and I was in a PhD program, and I eventually dropped out of that because I think I was doing it for the wrong reasons.
That I understand.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. I had a family, a full-time job, and everything. So, however, in the course of doing my research and my classwork, I ran across a paper about the socioeconomic approach to managing it, or SEAM, SEAM is the acronym. It originated in France by an individual named Henri Saval, and it's really focused on, it's an organization development methodology, but it works by interviewing people inside the organization and quantifying hidden costs, and then using that hidden cost as both a lever for change as well as a metric for improvement through its reduction. It also comes with a set of management tools that allow managers to better steer, which is align and synchronize their organizations, develop their people, delegate more appropriately, and manage their time. I hesitate to say manage their time because there's not really such a thing as time management. There's only priority management.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, that's a good point.
Everyone has the same amount of time. It's just how you manage the priorities within that time that really matters. So that's what got me into this work. The first time I used SEAM, I got the author of the papers to come in and actually train me. And I'm one of less than 10 people in the United States that is certified to do these SEAM interventions in organizations.
Right.
And we regularly go in and find hidden costs exceeding $50,000 per person annually. So if you can imagine a department of 100 people, that's $5 million annually.
Wow.
Oftentimes it's intangible, but it's time, right? Imagine what an organization could do if half of someone's time were not spent on all that stuff that's unnecessary, but rather it were refocused to doing the work of strategic implementation
Yeah.
and delivering good things for their customers.
That would be amazing. When I
Yeah.
think about what you're saying, we call it in our organization clearing the deck, right? Trying to take some things off of the deck so that you can focus on the right work. And I love what you said about time management versus priority management, because you're right. There are 24 hours in a day. We all get the same amount, but how we choose to spend it and how productive we are in that space is really what separates the great from the mediocre. And I don't think anybody wakes up and wants to be mediocre. I think we all
Right.
pretty extraordinary. And you help people do that. So you wrote a book called Liberating the Overworked Manager, right? Oh, there
Yep.
it is. Nice product placement, sir. Okay, so tell me what the impetus was for actually executing on the book, because it sounds like you'd been doing the work for a long time, and all of a sudden you realize, you know what? I think that we could give this to people in a format that they could turn around and use on their own.
Right. So I told you the very, seemingly long-winded story of how I ended up where I ended up.
Yeah.
In my work as an agile consultant, helping organizations undergo transformation, I regularly ran into managers that, through no fault of their own, quite honestly, didn't necessarily know the job of management and understand all of that it entailed, right? Oftentimes we have this halo effect where individuals who are really good at their job, they're technical specialists and they're really, really good at it, and they really enjoy it. They, kind of elevate and get elevated into positions of management because, well, naturally, if you are a good technician, you should be able to manage technicians very well.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, it's a completely different skill set. But I got asked because there's no, you won't find a manager role in agile methodologies, right? And I had a director in one of the trainings that I was providing ask me, okay, this is all great, but how do I fit into this? And I discovered that I didn't have a super answer. I had an answer that talked about, you could do servant leadership and, you need to remove roadblockers from the teams so that they can deliver good work for the customers in the marketplace and implement your organization strategy. But when it got down to it, and if they were to say, what is it at 8 a.m. on Monday that I'm not doing on Friday at 5 p.m., what is different tactically that I need to be doing? And a lot of agile coaches didn't have an answer to that question. And that's one of the things that caused me to write the book, because it's about some management tools that are included with SEAM. And there are essentially 5 that I talk about. The first is a time management tool, which allows someone to track their time, their daily activities for a week. I asked for 5 consecutive days. Analyze it after the fact and make decisions on what you can delegate, what you can stop doing, and what you should continue doing, right? And there's been some great results coming from that tool. There was one director of a technology sales team that I worked with who cleared up 160 hours annually on his
Wow.
calendar. That's one full working month. So that was a big win right there. There's a few other tools, a delegation tool, a competency grid that helps understand what competencies are needed in the organization. There's also an internal external strategic action plan. And there are a lot of organizations that focus on external strategy. How are we going to do in the marketplace? How are we going to place our products, position them, those kind of things. But exceedingly, there are many who don't focus on internal strategy.
Mhm.
And when I talk about internal strategy, I'm really referring to continuous improvement. How are we going to focus our efforts internally to make ourselves better so that we can free up time to work on that external strategy? So that's what that tool allows us to do. And then the priority action plan is just a tool that flows from that helps managers align work across the organization. right? And these tools are, so they're incredibly simple. They're a simple workbook, Excel workbook. Everybody has Excel, right? There's no special platform subscription required for this. And I use Excel for one purpose, and that purpose is to really reinforce and support collaboration and communication across the organization.
Mm.
With enterprise resource planning tools, ERP systems, in my experience, they're great if they're used properly, but I've seen, a lot of misuse. They give the illusion of alignment because people put their plans and their work in there and then they forget about it, right?
Yeah.
And they don't talk to people in other departments or other teams, and that's when things, get bottlenecked up.
Yeah.
Well,
Or
we have to talk.
or done twice or overdone or underdone, right? Like
Yeah.
all of those things and being able to find them, I think is the most important part, right? We know we have a spreadsheet for that, but where is it?
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so that is actually quite fascinating. And what I think I appreciate the most about what you're talking about is the level of efficiency that it has the potential to create, giving people back some time, because that's the number one complaint people have. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time to do that. I don't have enough time to do this. And what I'm hearing is that you just your priorities are out of whack and you're wasting time on things that you could actually automate, do together, all of that good stuff. So I am sure that the people listening are kind of excited. They're like, okay, this stuff makes sense. And it's the kind of thing that I need in my organization and I need to have become part of our work. So before I ask you my favorite question, I would love for people to be able to find you. How would somebody find Brian Irwin if they're like, okay, I need an agile coach. I need somebody that can come in and help rearrange the madness that is our system or are our systems right now?
So, two places. Everyone can find me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/Brian Irwin. And it's Brian spelled correctly with an I, not with a Y. So it's BRIANIRWIN, not Irwin with an E. And then the other location is brianirwingroup.com. Everyone's also free you can get a PDF copy for free of my book by going to brianirwingroup.com and then /book download. You can sign up there and get a PDF version, or you can go on Amazon and buy a hard copy. I've got the Kindle version, paperback, and hardcover.
Well, that is very generous of you to offer your book as a free download, because I think it's something people need, right?
It is.
So that
And by the way, inside the book, there's also a link to get the tools.
awesome. Well, and I wrote all the tools down. I'm very excited about all of the different, they just seem practical to me. They seem like the kind of thing that I could do in an afternoon, either independently or with my team and discover some really great things. That's awesome.
Yes.
And that leads me to my favorite question, because ultimately I feel like this is something you create for organizations. But if you had to describe productive joy, what would be your description?
I would describe it as flow.
Ooh.
And being in a state of doing something that you love and that adds value to the world and that, you can earn a living from.
Yeah. Nothing is better than when those two things meet, right? I love doing
Right.
and it makes me a little bit of money. So that in and of itself is just a powerful way to
Yeah.
look at things. I love
Yeah.
it.
And it has a purpose, I'm a very people-centric individual, and all the talk of AI and automation and machine learning, it's all great, but at the end of the day, people get things done, and they get things done by and through and for people.
Yeah. That's very, very true. So, do you have a great story of a time that you came in and did some of this work with a group? And I mean, I know you've mentioned a couple different hours found, 160 hours a week somebody found. But do you have a great story about a time that you worked with an organization and they saw instant results or at least quick results?
There Well, of course, I told you earlier the story of Bill who reclaimed 160 hours on his work year, his calendar. So there's that one. There was another, there was a, there was a school system. I tell this story in the book about the mechanics. They, because they knew that they were considered because of the internal, external strategic action plan and the priority action tool, the priority action plan, they were able to correct some errors that were happening with the school buses.
Hmm.
And they actually went to the manufacturer and disclosed an issue that they had with the engines and were able to save them a lot of money as well.
Right.
So that was really good.
Well, what I appreciate about that example is that the outcome wasn't necessarily what maybe they thought they were going to get, right? Like they probably didn't
Right.
think they were going to fix an issue with the engine systems. But
Mhm.
what you're doing, the work that you're doing allows people to figure out how everything intersects
That's
and
right.
thoughtfully work it out so that that intersection isn't a bottleneck, but is actually a flow, like you said.
Yeah, and
Directly to it.
the real the key here is the realization that everybody in the organization, I've yet to work with an organization who didn't know the issues that they were having and didn't know they have the wherewithal and the means internally to fix all of their problems. It's just sometimes it takes someone from the outside to come in and make those things visible because oftentimes you become hidden. They become blind to the dysfunction when you work inside of a system long enough, right? It just becomes a way of doing things. I hear comments like, well, I spend, 2 hours a day on email going through my email, but it's just part of the job, right? Or I'm constantly putting out fires and doing escalations, but it just comes with the territory. It's part of the job. Well, it is, but does it need to be?
Mm.
What's the question?
A great question, and one that I think everybody that is listening right now could probably ask is, it do I because I'm sure I've said those exact words, and if I haven't, I know my husband has, I know my friends have, coworkers, and so we're saying it, but we're assuming that that's the only way it can be. Something you said back at the beginning about, doing things for tradition's sake or because that's the way it's always been done. We have a theme in our house of, are we doing this because it's the way it's always been done, or are we doing this because it's the best way to do it? Because we hate that. We hate when people say, "Oh, well, that's the way we've always done it, so that's why we're going to keep doing it." We've got to
Yeah.
embrace the change, and change can be scary. People don't like it, but if we're holding on to something for the wrong reasons, then it might be time to let go.
That's right. And I feel that way, but I disagree a little bit. Yet I agree that yes, change is scary, but um, I've learned that it's not necessarily change that scares people. It's being changed
Oh,
that scares them, right? If you have the autonomy to be the change yourself, that's a lot less threatening
sure.
than someone coming in and thrusting change upon you. I call it inflicting help. I'm here to inflict help on you.
Inflicting help, I like that. That's definitely better than doing unto, because I don't think any of us like that, for sure. Well, Brian, this has been fascinating, and I have definitely learned a lot. I did not even know these types of coaches existed, and I certainly am going to grab a free copy even of your book and learn more about the specific protocols, because I think protocols have such power when used correctly, especially with a team. And so, even if it's just figuring out how to shift from time management to priority management, I think that in and of itself would be a great change. So,
Yeah,
but I do have some rapid fire questions for you. Are you excited?
sure. Yes.
This is my
Rapid
favorite
fire.
part because this is where we get to know you a little bit. So, first and foremost, Brian, what is your definition of fun?
Oh, definition of fun. My definition of fun might differ a little bit from a lot of people
I forgot.
because I am kind of an adrenaline junkie. I love adrenaline and I love mountain biking. I love, I haven't done it for a while, but I was a skydiver for many years.
Right.
I tried out for the Army Golden Knights. Unfortunately, didn't make it. So, but ultimately, it's doing things with people that you love and appreciate and that you can do together that I think is the ultimate fun.
Yes. Well, and I think that's an excellent definition. Nice. And you just do it to the extreme, not like everybody else, but there's nothing wrong with that. How do you know that you're showing up as your authentic self?
I think it's a feeling. I I don't I don't put up false, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't put up a false front for people, right? Of course, I wrote a book called Managing Politics and Conflict in Projects. It was my first one, but you have to be tactful. But I speak my mind. And when something's not working well, I tend to surface it and mention it and try to find a way to improve it.
I like it. I like it. That's great. Okay. How do you channel your best self on your worst days?
Ooh, just get started. I think that's one of the on your worst days, right? I think that's one of the hardest things to do is just get started. And sometimes it's okay. You just need to, if you're having a hard day, you need to feel, right?
Yeah.
You need to, especially guys, you don't like this, feel, but you need to be able to sit in feelings, right? I lost a son in the 1st of August of this year in a motorcycle accident,
So sorry.
four days before his 19th birthday. So I would put that as the worst day I've ever had in my life.
100%. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But you sat in the feelings and you're never over, you don't recover from losing
No.
a child.
In many ways, I'm still sitting, in that feeling. I will be for many years, I think.
But you got started. You moved on. You figured out that you had to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and that's great advice for any of us, right?
Yes.
Sure. Okay, so people are going to remember lots of the wonderful things that you said, but they're really going to latch on to one. And so if you have to pick the one that people are going to remember, what's the one thing that you really want people to walk away from this podcast knowing?
The amount of overwork and stress that you are experiencing is often your own fault. Um, inside, if it's work related, um, you have the ability to negotiate for your individual needs inside of the workplace,
Sure.
right? If you can't and it's non-negotiable, um, I would rethink that workplace, right? If it's your personal life, stress is often something that's trying to tell us something, right? Nature has this way of teaching us the same lessons over and over until we learn them.
Sure.
So I've found that if there's a lot of stress in life, it's often associated with something that I'm avoiding.
Yeah. Well, that is sound advice. And thank you for that. Thank you for everything. Yeah, I know there are many other things that you could have been doing with the last 30 minutes, but you chose to spend it with our Productive Joy family. And we're so grateful for that. Thank you for sharing your brilliance. And thank you for being willing to put it in book form so that we can all learn from you asynchronously as well.
Yes, and thank you for having me and for having an awesome podcast. I appreciate it very
Yeah.
much.
Thank you. All right. And listeners, I told you there's another great shot of B12, some really great nuggets of wisdom. And I suggest you reach out to Brian if you're struggling with systems or need for there to be a more streamlined way of work, because we are wasting a lot of time unnecessarily. And that is not fun. So, as you know, my most important thing that you've got to figure out how to do is turn that fun into action and change the way you're doing things so that great things can happen. So do that today. Figure out a way to turn fun into action.